Authorities say the bulk of an oil spill has already been removed from the sea and beaches 10 days after it took place. Now, the next stage of cleaning could take up to 3 months, with sea activities only resuming after the water is repeatedly tested to be safe. Meanwhile, Singapore is developing a plan to protect and restore coastal habitats. During a press conference today, 3 ministers also addressed issues such as response times and insurance claims. Well, swimming and other water activities could take up to 3 months to return at some beaches in Sentosa and East Coast Park, affected by that recent oil spill. While authorities say most of the oil has been removed from the sea and the sand, what remains is more difficult to reach. Nasyrah Rohim with more.
These shots taken 9 days after the oil spill show clearer waters again. But the work is not yet done. This vessel is on loan from the Singapore Civil Defence Force, helping to flush out oil trapped in these rocks at Sentosa. Such coastal features will need skilled workers, special equipment and more time to get all the oil out.
Things are, just not so certain. The weather has an impact. So, for example, if you have very high storm surges, it brings the spilled oil, any oil remnants in the sea back into the shore. If we have rain and then it happens with the tidal condition that brings the water out, then maybe it will help to flush away. So actually there are many possibilities, including how the wind is blowing and how it's bringing the oil patches and dispersing the oil patches.
After the deep clean, agencies may ask volunteers to pick up the final pieces. More than 1,500 have signed up to help with efforts.
Tar balls are small blobs of coagulated oil in the sand. This will likely be done with rakes and sieves rather than shovels to avoid removing too much uncontaminated sand. We're planning to involve volunteers working alongside our cleaning personnel so that we can relieve our workers and to accelerate the reopening of our beaches. We will ensure that this is conducted safely and that volunteers are properly equipped.
Some 550 tons of oily sand and debris have been removed from all affected beaches. They have been sent to toxic waste facilities for safe treatment. The recovered oil and sand may eventually be reused for other purposes. Ms. Fu adds that air quality remains safe and Singapore's drinking water supply from the sea remains unaffected.
Well, in reaction to the oil spill, agencies are putting together an action plan to protect and restore coastal habitats over the next 6 months and beyond. The National Development Minister says it will take time for the full impact to be felt on Singapore's biodiversity. Nicolas has more.
This is Berlayer Creek, a mangrove forest at Labrador Nature Reserve. Just down this stream are rare plant species and a thriving ecosystem. To protect them, the National Parks Board put up oil-absorbent booms. Still, authorities say it may take even months for any effects to be seen.
We just don't know enough. We just don't know enough about how these different organisms will respond and how different species might respond differently to the same exposure. Because as with people, we all might respond differently to a similar environmental or other kind of toxin. And likewise, these species within these marine ecosystems are the same. Some will be a lot more sensitive, some a lot more resilient.
For instance, 2 kingfishers drenched in oil have already died, despite being rescued. Plans to monitor wildlife with surveys and long-term research are in the works.
Senior Parliamentary Secretary Bayam King and I had a closed-door discussion with representatives from 30 nature and community groups, organizations and IHLs. We discussed the next phase in managing the impact of the oil spill on our coastal habitats and marine life. We wanted to tap on their knowledge, specialist skills and experience and work together to deal with this more effectively.
Other suggestions included using such networks to do coastal cleanups and to educate the public on what to do if they spot oil-slicked animals.
Now, efforts to clean up the oil spill almost complete. 10 days after it happened. Transport Minister Chee Hong Tat says working closely with industry partners had helped agencies respond quickly and minimise any further damage. Now, here's how response efforts began as it unfolded. On Friday, the 14th of June, 2:18 p.m, dredging ship Vox Maxima hit fuel-carrying bunker ship Marine Honor. Now, this tore a hole that leaked an estimated 400 metric tons of fuel oil into the sea. The Maritime and Port Authority was alerted to the event at 2:22 p.m. 11 minutes later, the first patrol craft reached the site, confirming the spill and began spraying dispersants. 11 more vessels were deployed to assist, while contractor TNT Salvage was immediately activated to lay containment booms. Now, work started at 9:41 p.m. when TNT arrived. It worked through the night and under bad weather conditions to deploy some 200 meters of containment booms around the Marine Honor. This process was only completed at 5:15 a.m. on the 15th of June, and that's about 13 hours after the incident. During this time, tidal currents and waves moved the oil away.
The main purpose of the containment boom around the damaged vessel is not to fence in the oil that has been spilled, but it is a preventive measure in case there's further spillage from the damaged vessel. The steps taken by MPA and TNT and their response times are in line with international industry practices for responses to oil spills. MPA also focus on the safety of the damaged vessel to confirm that it will not sink and conducted checks to ensure that the crew was safe and the spillage was under control. And these steps were critical to prevent more oil from spilling into the sea.
At 7 a.m. on the 15th of June, the oil washed up at beaches along Sentosa and the southern islands. Cleanup efforts begun, with sea activities suspended shortly after. The National Parks Board also deployed booms at biodiversity-sensitive areas from noon, from Labrador Nature Reserve's Rocky Shore to Balea Creek, and also at West Coast Park to protect mangroves at Marsh Garden.
So some may ask why we did not then place booms along our waterfronts and coastlines immediately to prevent the oil from washing onshore. Now, I understand where the question is coming from, but it is not feasible to deploy booms around the entire coastline of Singapore. Now, if you think about it, if you are going to deploy booms along the entire southern coastline from Pasir Panjang to East Coast, that will require more than 46 kilometers of booms. The booms, once deployed, also require regular maintenance and replacement, as they are subject to weather and waves, and some of them can snap.
Transport Minister Chee Hong Tat adds that some oil remains dispersed within the water column, even as operations are ongoing to clear the site. Aslam Shah was there to observe the operational challenges.
Here I am at the incident site of the Singapore-flagged vessel Marine Honor, where you can see it's a huge hole right behind me, and multiple operations are currently taking place. And to explain more is Captain Anuj Sarai. Can you tell me more about what I'm seeing right here? There is a white boom, a black boom, and a yellow equipment right there. What is exactly taking place right now?
Right, so what we have got outside right now is an absorbent boom, and if anything leaks out of these booms, the absorbent boom will actually just absorb it and we can dispose it off later on. So that's the purpose of the absorbent boom which is inside. Okay, that boom actually is blocking the passage for all the oil that is leaking out of the ship to go anywhere. It will get blocked, and just to make sure there's no oil left over there, we actually have a small skimmer. The skimmer's job is to, if they see any remnants of oil, it'll skim it off and then take it on top.
Over 3,400 meters of booms have been laid, including the ones here at Sentosa Beach. These prevent oil from flowing back to sea and from being washed ashore while cleanup operations are ongoing.
Part of the function of this boom is to soak the oil as well. So when it's completely soaked, this entire thing will turn black, which means that they have to be disposed and replaced with new booms.
But laying and replacing these different types of booms isn't as simple as it looks.
The biggest challenge for me is the weather conditions, especially depending on the swells, the tides, rains. The boats, they're moving all the time, and when there's a lot of wind, tides, it moves much more. If we see it's too rough, we don't send the small boats to the islands or whatever to tie up or fix booms. Just maintain wait for weather conditions, and then we do it.
Sometimes we are slow on the work because the rocks are very, very steeply. There's a near miss. There is a near miss. Okay, for sure. This kind of work, there's a near miss. But I have to prevent the near miss by the safety.
While the tide may not always be in their favor, these workers are also tapping on real-time weather data and satellite imagery to hopefully restore the natural environment.